I am a conservative Christian. I'm a young earth creationist. I believe God designed men and women to be different. And I think there's only two sexes and two genders. And I believe you have to repent of your sins that are defined by the word of God in the Bible. And I believe there's no salvation other than through Jesus. But a lot of Christians say a lot of dumb stuff a lot of the time. And well, I'm going to play this video. And I can't argue with the reality. So let's watch it. We can't love people properly if we think they're evil automatically by birthright. That's perverted. It's wrong. I don't endorse everything this person says or necessarily agree with everything he says, but facts are facts.
Hello, welcome to the Dr. Tim Jennings Show, where we seek real answers to life's real problems. I'm here with Susan Collenberg and Lori Atkins.
Welcome. Today's show is we're going to be talking about Christianity and homosexuality and how there has been confusion. But first, we're going to go to a question from Kylie. And she asks, I am new to your teachings, and I am wondering, how do I reconcile this verse? And it's Hebrews 9:22. And according to the law, almost all things are purified with blood, and without the shedding of blood, there is no remission. Dr. Jennings?
Yeah, so if you've been following our show now for a while, you know this big grand theme. Are you viewing that text through imposed human laws, a system of rules without inherent consequence, where requires somebody to punish for broken rules? Or are you viewing it through design law? God is the creator who built his universe to operate on certain protocols and realities, and deviations are destructive to those who deviate. Which lens are you looking through? And so my view is that God is the creator, and his laws are the laws upon which reality are built. Without the shedding of blood, there's no remission. What does that mean? Well, if you I tell the story about a young lady who was diagnosed with leukemia, and her parents that were tested, they weren't a match. Her sibling was tested, they weren't a match. But there was a 1 in 4 chance that they got pregnant with another child, the new child would be a match. And so hope against hope, they went ahead and had another child. And in the pregnancy, they tested, and sure enough, this child was a match. And after the child was born, old enough to donate, they took cells from this child and donated to the child with the leukemia. Without the shedding of blood, there was no remission. Now, what does remission mean? If your child is dying of cancer, what do you want to have happen to the cancer? Do you want the cancer to be punished?
You want to go into remission.
You want the cancer to go into remission. And what does remission mean? It means that the cancer cells remit back to their previous healthy, cancer-free state. That's what it means. And thus, without the shedding of Christ's blood, human beings could not remit back to their perfection that God designed them in Eden to be. So this was not any type of illegal blood payment to an offended God or a broken law. This was a mechanism or means whereby God could provide the cure and remedy necessary to fix the brokenness in humans so we could be restored back to God's original ideal. The sin will go into remission.
Okay. Well, onto our topic today. It's kind of a hot topic. We're going to be talking about homosexuality and Christianity. And what's the normal view? What is the misunderstanding? And just what's happening in Christianity, when we consider homosexuality?
Well, I'm not going to talk about Christianity. Okay. I'm going to talk about what's happening with sexual orientation and sexual identity, because what's happening, I think, if you weren't asking what's happening in Christianity, is a lot of ignorance and a lot of misinformation. So we have to start with facts. We have to start with truth. So if you're a Christian, Jesus said the truth will set you free. So are you willing to look at evidence and facts and truths, or do you want to hold beliefs that are refuted by evidence, facts, and truth? So we have to look first and understand human sexuality. Okay, there's a condition called androgen insensitivity syndrome. All human babies, fetuses, start out female. And then in the developmental process, if they have a XY chromosomes, X and Y, the Y will code for the development of testicles. And as the testicles form in utero, in fetal development, they will create a couple of hormones, anti-Mullerian hormone and testosterone. The anti-Mullerian hormone will prevent this female fetus that's forming from developing the upper 2/3 of the vagina and the uterus. And the testosterone will then turn the end organs, the clitoris into the penis and the labia into the scrotum, and will masculinize the brain and will turn a female fetus into a male fetus, and you get a male baby born. Okay, but it starts out female, masculinized by the effects of testosterone. That's normal fetal development. Okay. There's a condition called androgen insensitivity syndrome, and the receptor that codes for the gene that codes for the receptor that sees testosterone is found on the X chromosome. Sometimes that gene is broken. It does not work. And so you have a chromosomally male fetus, X chromosome, Y chromosome. The Y chromosome is making, testes have been formed, making the proper hormones. Testosterone is circulating through the body, but there are no receptors in the body to see the testosterone. And so the child is born a healthy baby girl, even though it's chromosomally male and has 2 testicles, but the testicles are stuck in the inguinal canal because the end organs didn't masculinize, so there's no scrotum for them to go into, and they are born a healthy baby girl. They're given a female birth certificate. They're raised as a female, and in adolescence, when they don't have their menstrual cycle, they go to a doctor. Doctors have been trained to identify this condition. It's not super common, but it's common enough. And they recognize what's happening. They do a little surgery to remove the testicles, because if they don't, they'll turn cancerous. And they put them on some estrogens, and they live their life as a female. And every government in the world recognizes the right of these females to marry men. Even though they're chromosomally male, they are, in their orientation, their thought, their identity, their sense of self, they are female. Okay. Well, 1998, the medical journals reported of a lady named Jane, 52-year-old, who needed
Okay, so what is my point? I want to be a smart Christian. So what that story? If you go back and hey Terry, here's my point. I am not saying I'm okay with gay marriage. I'm not saying that I'm cool with transsexual and transgender agendas and woke agendas. I'm not. But if Christians are going to defend their worldview, they have to be factual. And I just argued on someone else's channel about, well, I believe if they have the Y chromosome, they're male. But he just gave an example where the person has a Y chromosome, which is what makes you male from a genetic point of view. And that person had the Y chromosome. Something goes wrong in their development, and they develop into a woman without male parts externally, and they have, on the bell curve of traits of masculine and feminine, they have feminine traits. They have feminine parts, although they don't work for reproduction, obviously, in that case. Everyone would see them as a woman. They would identify as a woman. They would live as a woman. They would look externally like a woman, but they have a Y chromosome because of the way the developmental process works. Now, even countries that don't accept gay marriage or they have laws against homosexuality identify those people as women, but they have a Y chromosome. But in every way, they're women, even though they can't have children. And that's a woman. And that person now that's different from changing your identity and messing up gender roles, which I don't agree with at all. I'm super conservative, but we can't make arguments based on, we gotta be in reality here. That's my point. So I'm just trying to be honest and realistic about it. Because, you can't convince people based on things that aren't true. Right? So that's my goal here. That's all I'm saying. I'm trying to be honest. Right? Hey. So that's my goal here. Don't put me in a box. I don't agree with this guy. He's a little bit fringe for my tradition, right? But dude, we want to be honest about science that's demonstratable. And that's all I'm trying to say. I want to stick up for that. I could go along with the flow and be like, oh, you're not, that's not a man, that's a woman. I'm not, it's not that. I'm not that guy. I'm the guy who's like, hey, evolution isn't true, but things about evolution are true. Like, I'm a young earth creationist. I believe in special creation. I think God created in a literal 7 days. I think we should rest on the Sabbath. But there are things about hard science, about the way genetics works. I just don't believe in the theology of evolution, right? So I'll play the last little bit here. Sorry, I'm trying to. I mean, if you don't agree with that, I just think you're kind of an ideological, But I'd be glad to have like a conversation about this later, if people want to quibble with what he's saying. But he's a doctor, so, and he's a conservative Christian, young earth creationist even. So let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to give Terry a wrench. Let's see.
An organ transplant for failing organs, and when her children were tested, they are female. Okay. Well, 1998, the medical journals reported of a lady named Jane, 52-year-old, who needed an organ transplant for failing organs, and when her children were tested to see if they were going to be a donor match, something unbelievable happened. The children that she had with her only husband through natural conception that she personally gave birth to came back as not her children. Now, did you hear what I said?
Yes.
The children that she had through natural conception with her, and the children tested to be the husband's. So they're the husband's kids.
Right.
Okay. They weren't swapped up at birth with somebody else's kid because of the husband's kids, genetic, and she's the one that gave birth to them, but they're not her kids. And they're very, very mystified until they started testing other members of the family. And even though the kids weren't hers in the genetic test, they tested to be actually related to her brothers and sisters. So they know they're biologically related to the mother. They're just not coming out as hers. And so they then started testing different tissue lines, and they discovered that Jane was a chimer. She had chimerism. Now, what's chimerism? Well, I think all of us know identical twins are when you have one ovum that gets fertilized and that single ovum then splits into two, and we have identical twins.
Yes, same DNA.
Right, same DNA. Fraternal twins are when you have two separate ovums ovulate on the same cycle and both ovums get fertilized. Now we have twins, but they're non-identical or fraternal twins, right? A chimer is when you have two ovums ovulate, like you're going to have fraternal twins. Mm-hmm. Both of them get fertilized, and like you're going to have fraternal twins. But then in early zygomatic development, they merge into one person. And so you have one child born with two cell lines. Some of the body cells are the one, and some body cells are the other. And so this particular person, Jane, was herself, but her reproductive organs were her sisters, her fraternal twin sister. Okay. And there have been cases of male-female fraternals, male-female fraternal twins that have merged into one. Now, what happens in a case like that if the brain is the female and vice versa? You see where I'm going with this, okay? See, there are many cases of this type of thing happening. Additionally, there are epigenetic markers. We talked about epigenetics in our previous show. These are markers that above the DNA telling the DNA how to express itself. There is a variation of testosterone in women's bodies. Some women have higher testosterone than other women do. Okay, and so during a pregnancy, a female fetal brain will have epigenetic markers that will protect the brain from circulating testosterone if the mother happens to have a fairly high level that might tend to masculinize the brain. And male brains have epigenetic markers that make them more sensitive to testosterone, so they'll masculinize, okay? Sometimes those epigenetic markers don't get set properly, okay? And so you may have a female brain with epigenetic markers that that make them more sensitive to testosterone, or male brains that resist the testosterone. Okay. And so we have a lot of factors going on here. The Bible teaches that all nature groans under the weight of sin. What that means is that there are biological and genetic variations in nature that were not part of God's original design. Okay. But that doesn't mean that those things are sin. For instance, some people are born sterile. That is not part of God's original design. His design was to be fruitful and multiply.
Right.
But somebody born sterile is not a sinner because they're sterile. It's not sinful, in other words, to be sterile. Okay? And so one of the things that the Christian community struggles with is they think that everyone is either male or everyone is either female, and there's no confusion in between everywhere, but that is not biologically real. There are multiple intersex conditions in which people could have chimerism, they could have androgen sensitivity syndrome, and a multiple other host of disorders that I haven't even gone through.
So the bottom line is that human sexuality is a much more complex issue than just black and white, male, female.
Yes, and human sexuality, so that's the biological pieces, and then there's the developmental pieces. And so I tell the case of a story of a young lady who came to see me, and when she first saw me, she identified herself as bisexual, but she said she used to be a lesbian, but now she's bisexual. And when I took her history, as a child, she was sexually molested by her father, but not in an abusive and threatening way. He seduced her in a romantic way, buy her gifts, take her on special trips, buy her special dresses. And so it was this kind of pseudo-love relationship that she, because she was so wooed by him at the time of development, was a willing participant and eager and happy to participate in this kind of perverse thing going on. But she was a child, wasn't her fault, obviously. But what happened for her, it caused confused identity. And her capacity for love was confused with sexual arousal. And so when she went away to high school, to a boarding school, she loved her roommate. And so she seduced her and had sex with her and thought she was a lesbian. Same thing happened in college, but then she met a male study partner and she loved him. And so she had sex with him. So now she's a bisexual. And by the time she came to see me, she's married and has a kid, but she identifies herself as bisexual. I never dealt with her sexual identity questions at all. I dealt with her trauma issues. And we resolved trauma issues. And she said to me in therapy one day, she said, you know, Dr. Jennings, I've never been intimate with somebody I didn't have sex with. And I said, what about us? Because in therapy, you're really bearing your soul. And she told me things she'd never told anybody. And it stunned her. She just thought. And she sat there probably for 15 minutes just processing that. She came back at her appointment 2 weeks later, and she said to me, and I never addressed sexual identity issue because I don't think that was her concern, but she said to me, she said, Dr. Jennings, I'm not lesbian. I'm not bisexual. I'm heterosexual. You see, what her case demonstrates is that she was biologically heterosexual, but she had an upbringing that was traumatic and abusive and exploitive and caused huge identity confusion, okay? And thus, when we dealt with her trauma issues, she realized her true original self was heterosexual. The problem with people like her, though, is there are many people like her that the religious right will then have come in and give testimony. I used to be a lesbian. Now I'm a heterosexual. And they will then articulate that these people represent homosexuals and you should put them in some type of therapy and you can cure them. This is fraudulent. This is not true. She does not represent the androgen sensitivity syndrome. She doesn't represent the epigenetic people who have a masculinized or feminized brain. She doesn't represent the chimerism and some of these other things. And so we can't mix these issues.
Now, Dr. Jennings, you just went through a lot of biological information. You're talking about androgen sensitivity syndrome and chimerism and a whole bunch of other things. But bottom line, doesn't the Bible condemn homosexuality?
I'm so glad you asked this question because many people have gone around and abused the homosexuals in their society based on supposedly what they think the Bible actually teaches. So let's actually talk about what the Bible actually teaches. Romans chapter 1. You have to understand context of Romans 1. The context of Romans 1 is that
Okay, I don't like that part because I don't agree with him on it. Okay, so here's the link if anybody wants to talk about this. I know it's complicated, but so I think we have to be compassionate, even though like this is, and I talked to my friend about this who has a different view than me. I'm not really for, at this point anyway, in my understanding, because I'm like a hardcore Bible thumper, I don't think we should support people living homosexual lifestyles whatsoever. That's my position. But the examples he gave are just reality, man. People are abused. There's genetic issues that prove that you can have a Y chromosome and be a woman, and everybody here would treat that person as a woman. If you didn't, you'd be a chump. If you did, if you didn't, because they have an X chromosome or a Y chromosome. There are women with Y chromosomes, and they are women, and they should be understood as to be women. And if you didn't see it, watch the video. It's just a fact. If that was my, sister, and you refused to call her a woman, I'd slap you. Just to uphold some weird principle that doesn't reflect reality. Like, oh, if you have a Y chromosome, you have to be a man. That just isn't true. But the exceptions are not the rule. See, there are men and women, and they are born a man or a woman. That's the roles God intended. Obviously, that's the original design. But there are people who are broken, and it's no fault of their own. Okay. Like that example is horrible. Like this is the abuse, sex outside of marriage and sex outside of a purpose for a family is broken and oftentimes deviant. But that doesn't mean everybody who, there's victims here. There's victims here. If you're like that example just really hits home. Like, look, I'm straight, totally straight. I only like women. And I support a conservative worldview, but like if you're not every deviant, perverse sexual sin has sometimes there's victims, and if it's a close family member, and he wasn't, not all sexual perversion is abusive in a physical sense. Imagine being confused by your own parent to where they actually pampered you and treated you like some trying to pursue a spouse, and they showered you with gifts and loving. One second. So I got to go blow snow here. But anyways, let's see. What do you think marriage is? Obviously it's a man and a woman. The purpose of marriage is for families, but I'm a young earth creationist. I think God invented marriage for procreation, right? Let's see. You ain't manly at all. You're just tough from having to be. I like to have women in my chat. Is that okay? I like women. Let's see. Yeah, you guys are cool. Missing Mod, Stephanie, and Terry. Been trying to get you guys to come hang out with me. So yeah, that's my view. I do think Christians have failed at approaching the gay issue to some level. And I grew up in Seattle. And again, let me just say, I do not promote gay marriage. I think it was a sad day when they legalized it. I don't think they should have, although I don't think the church and the state should be intertwined at all. But I do think they're not just evil people that, oh, hey, there's Terry. What's up, Terry?
Hi.
I'm interviewing Terry tomorrow. So
Yeah.
Good to have
I'll
you.
be here tomorrow too. Nice.
Cool.
Okay, so
What
yeah,
are your thoughts?
I have a lot of thoughts. Well, I've known some people who had intersex conditions, so it is a difficult kind of subject to tap dance around, I guess, delicately, because it is sensitive for one. But I knew a woman, again, I don't know. See, the thing is, biologically, you're either one or the other, like ultimately, even with an intersex condition. So the woman I knew she was XXY. She was, as a baby, basically mutilated and then, raised as a girl. And when she developed puberty, she became more masculinized. So it was a tough situation, you know, this person went through, and definitely I don't know. I do think it's, you know, down to the fall that these things occur, just like, you know, any condition that people have, you know, the reasons our bodies aren't, you know, they don't work well sometimes, or people get all kinds of conditions or diseases, you know, it's just another thing, like when it comes to intersex conditions, which is also a problem with lumping it in with like homosexuality, because that's a completely different, that's a spiritual sickness that's going on.
Yeah, in the political
Mhm.
sense, and the pride thing is, I'm not a fan, right? Like,
Well, yeah, and often it is pride that is the issue. It's not an issue of like desire or lust. Usually it's down to pride that people actually become homosexual. So yeah, it's very interesting because it's very in your face, and if they had any awareness, or if the veil was lifted from them, they would see that, you know, they're celebrating pride, which is, you know, one of the worst sins. Pride leads people into making all kinds of strange decisions.
dang, your boyfriend is all over you.
I know, he loved me.
He's
I'm
he's
so
just,
lucky.
yeah, but he can't lend you to me for a moment.
He gets jealous.
It's odd, clearly.
Yeah.
I could hear him.
Did we
That was
talk about that recently? I feel like we talked about it, where like female cats often will get jealous of like male owners. And yeah, I think he has a bit of the same thing. If I'm talking to a male, he gets a little bit like, I don't know, maybe he's just being more protective. And you know what else? I think he just wants another can of cat food too.
Yeah, maybe just that.
Yeah.
It can be all at the same time. I think it's.
Yeah.
I can hear the tension in his voice. So
Yeah.
I can let me borrow her for a minute, man.
Yes. Okay, come on. So he jumps like right up on my lap and he's going ham. So
Yeah, this is funny. Yeah, my cat's female. My cat that sleeps with me is female, so it seems like there is a thing there too. But it's funny. Well, yeah, man, I can't believe how much I agree with you. I just, when Christians, conservative Christians, which I identify as, or I am, let's say, start acting like it's so obvious, it's just this, and they don't give heed to the intricacies that we know from our scientific research that's not biased. And we just look bad. We look dumb. And
well, I might have missed part of the conversation earlier because I had to pop out because I was hearing all them dirty words I didn't want to hear.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they were in the video too. Sometimes it's necessary, but yeah, when everybody's all over the place, it's like, I just get a little bit annoyed with it, because it's like, as soon as I try to, if you disagree at all about any little thing, it's like, oh, you're just being a liberal, or you're just a liberal or whatever. And I'm just like, I'm not.
Oh yeah, I don't think it's anything to do with liberalism, at least talking about the intersex conditions, because it's just a fact. Some people are born different. So it's the same thing as being born, well, it's not the same thing, obviously, but you know, and from a Christian perspective, it's not different than being born with like cerebral palsy or something. You know, people have different things that, you know, fall short of God's perfect design, but you know, God still can redeem these people and use them. And it's not their condition as a result of living in a fallen world, but it's not, you know, them that is, it's not something that they caused or their parents caused, I think.
Amen. Yeah. So I'm to the audience here. I'm going to be interviewing Terry, who has a channel. Do you want to tell anybody about like what you're doing with your channel? Just as like
my channel, I do chill streams. I do open panels, let people come up and, you know, be messy. And then, I also do my reading streams. So right now we're going through Fascinating Womanhood. And then sometimes I do topical streams. I'm going to be interviewing Tim on Saturday. I just talked with him about
Tim from the stream, not
Tim. Tim. I can't wait to have my audience talk to Tim. It's going to be great. My chat is like it live.
I think your audience is a little different than what kind of audience he might have, but I'm not sure. But your audience might be different than his. normal audience. I don't know if he has a channel.
Yeah, no, I definitely think it'll be fun. It'll be fun to field any questions that they have for him.
And you do you have like a Discord and hang out sometimes and do Discord parties and stuff?
Yeah, we'll watch movies like maybe once every few weeks, and then sometimes like once a week I'll pop in, and when I'm watching upstairs downstairs I'll play that, and people join me for that. It's one of my favorite shows.
Right on.
I'm working through it again in season 2 now.
Cool. Well, I was really interested in talking to you about what you were bringing up to all the atheists. So hopefully tomorrow I'd like to just chat with you about your views on that sort of thing.
Oh, okay. Like, what were we talking about today?
Like
Genesis. Yeah, we're talking about my interpretation of Genesis.
Yeah. You said you're like this is good because it'll help me kind of get prepared for interviewing you about you are a young Earth creationist or no?
I suppose. Yeah, I think so.
You
I'm
take
not
the Bible to be true and all that.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't really know how old the Earth is or pretend to, but I don't think that I believe that, humanity was created, not evolved.
Cool. Yeah, so it's good. And you go to like a Baptist church, American Baptist church, I think you said, right?
Yes. Yes.
Have you always, is that something you're really committed to, that exact theology per se, or is it just happen to be a church that you just mix well with? And
I'm not really that into theology. Okay. Yeah, it's just where I ended up. It's where the Lord pulled me. I do agree with them about certain doctrines, of course, but honestly, I don't get into that. When the guys start arguing their theology, I get my eyes glaze over most of the time.
Yeah, I definitely have that effect on people.
I'm like,
well, cool. I got to go blow snow, so it was good to have you come in, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Right. You said it was snowing. Yeah, well, thanks for having me pop on.
Yeah, no, thank you. See you tomorrow.
Bye.